Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to Season 1 Part 7 of What If Deku Was in 1B. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat, so we begin. The crowd's eruption of happy cheers heavily contrasted with the tense atmosphere of those who prepared themselves for the battles as Izuku stood waiting for his match to begin when All Might, or just Toshinori in his civilian form, called out. Young Midoriya, the mentor, revealed how he predicted Izuku's body could release 5%. And the greenette slumped forward. The little confidence that he had been building started to crumble at the idea. So I really have been blessed with friends and luck. Nonsense. Toshinori patted Izuku's shoulder. And Izuku looked up at his mentor. Listen, it's the times when you're scared or worried that you should deal with it by smiling. Toshinori buffed up into his hero form to give his signature smile. Stand proud. Don't forget I've got high hopes for you. Izuku walked into the stadium with those words pushing him as the corners of his mouth trembled upwards. Audience, the finals that you've been waiting for is starting. Match number 1. The board displayed their pictures as the people went wild. From the hero course, Izuku Midoriya versus, from general studies, it's Satoshi Shinsu. Izuku was cracking his knuckles as Shinsu suddenly started speaking. This is a fight to test the strength of your spirit. If you know what you want for your future, then you can't worry about your appearances. Ready? That bouncy ball agreed to what the monkey said about pride. Start. But don't you think they were dumb for throwing away the chance? Izuku gritted his teeth. Moments ago, Monoma, and Shota talked in the locker room about Shinsu's quirk. Monoma had searched the student up already and backed up with Shota. Izuku knew that speaking was the trigger, but even so, Izuku hated to hear anyone badmouth his friends. What did you say? Izuku almost growled out, taking a few steps forward when his body froze. Unable to move, Izuku wanted to yell out in frustration and wanted nothing else than to run forward and give a piece of his mind. Hey, what's the matter? Mike yelled. Seeing Izuku frozen, and Monoma wanted to facepalm himself in the stands. That's just how he is. Takage sighed. No matter how confident or sure of a plan Izuku was, if his friend was insulted, then there was no way he would stay quiet. Is this Shinsu's quirk? Mike asked, and Aizawa sighed. You're lucky that you've been blessed. Izuku Midoriya, Shinsu muttered. Turn around and walk out of bounds. Shinsu Hitoshi. Quirk, brainwashing. The world had gone fuzzy for Izuku, as if his mind had separated from his body. Each step echoed loudly as all Izuku could think about was his failure. No, I can't let it end like this. I can't disappoint them. I still need to pass and fight others, and give my all. A miracle happened as the out-of-bounds line suddenly stopped getting closer, and Izuku could see 8 figures in the hallway with glowing yellow eyes. Red lightning streaks appeared across his veins as Izuku's fingers lifted ever so slightly. Boom! A vortex wind pressure disturbed the settled dust on the floor while Izuku gasped for air. He did not forget his fury earlier as Izuku turned to glare at Shinsu, dead set on winning this time. You shouldn't be able to move. What did you do? Izuku didn't want to repeat the mistake he made with a hand over his mouth, and Shinsu was now uneasy. He won't talk. Did he figure out my secret? No. He must have heard it from the two glaring at me earlier. The purple-haired boy clenched a fist as Izuku held onto his 2 broken fingers. You are blessed to be born with the ideal quirk, Shinsu yelled out, suddenly desperate as he didn't know what to do. Others have blessed me, Izuku thought as he grabbed Shinsu and pushed him toward the edge. I can't lose either. Receiving 2 punches to the face didn't stop Izuku as he let out his best wonky smile before throwing the student over his shoulder. Damn, Shinsu landed on the floor back first, and the whole stadium quiet. Shinsu is out of bounds. Midoriya advances to the next round. The crowd went wild as the fighters had to stand up and bow. Shinsu left the stage, but something was on Izuku's mind. He looked at the taller opponent and asked, why do you want to be a hero, Shinsu? There was no response at first as Shinsu turned around, but as he did, you can't help the things you long for. Izuku could say nothing, but there was no need as the students from general studies cheered Shinsu up, and the greenette smiled as it reminded him of his own friends, the people who gave him his confidence. The Gen Ed student looked up at the sky. I won't give up. I'll be a better hero than all of you. Izuku took a deep breath and puffed his chest out proudly. Yeah, He was frozen underneath Shinsu's brainwashing, and the other chuckled. Just don't lose in an unsightly way. Izuku headed to see Recovery Girl for his broken fingers since the match was over, and Toshinori was there. Still, before the hero could say anything, an apology tumbled out. Sorry, I could only smile at the end. The mentor shook his head and smiled at his mentee. Your confidence is growing, even though it's slow. It's better than not smiling at all. Recovery Girl punched the hero's stomach and reprimanded him for putting pressure on his successor before telling Izuku to go back. sitting with his class and getting a minor scolding from Monoma for not listening. They watched as Shoto Todoroki and Hantashiro walked out on stage for their turn. Start. Immediately, tape bound around Todoroki's body, and Shiro flung the captured boy toward the edge. Sorry, Todoroki had already used a lot of ice from the previous cavalry battle since he didn't get his ideal team. But the crowd went silent as an iceberg narrowly missed the onlookers. The peaks were almost double the height of the arena, and everyone was speechless. Frost covered Todoroki's body as a thin layer of ice as he huffed out some steam. Shiro is immobilized. Todoroki moves into the next round, Midnight yelled, and the crowd didn't know what to cheer except don't worry about it to Shiro, and Todoroki slowly walked over. Sorry, I went overboard. I was angry. With his left hand on Shiro's stomach, he started to defrost what he froze. Why didn't he use fire? Monoma wondered out loud as Izuku could only wonder why Todoroki's back looked so sad. Huh? Takage questioned. And Monoma shrugged. My data said that he had a dual quirk. He was using ice in the cavalry, so I assumed he would use fire for the one-on-ones. When the stage finally defrosted, Mike hyped up the crowd again as he introduced the next contestants. It was Shizaki against a student in class called Denki Kaminari who immediately tried flirting with her. When this is over, wanna grab a bite to eat? I'll comfort you when it's over. You know, Shizaki was just confused as Kaminari tried to win, yelling out, indiscriminate shock. 1.3 million volts. It was an instant win. Only it was Shizaki who won as a wave of vines extended from her hair. It tore off to create a shield, and Kaminari could do nothing as the floor cracked before him, caught in a cocoon of vines that held him up like a sacrifice. Midnight cracked her whip. Shizaki advances to the next round. All right, Tetsu yelled out as Honuki nodded. Izuku finally got his hands on one of his notebooks and immediately started to mutter about Class 1A's quirks. He added Todoroki and Shiro while going on a rampage about how Kaminari would be ridiculously strong against a different opponent. He kept going until Takage managed to grab his attention again, and Izuku quietened down. Monoma smiled as Izuku went back to writing, this time quietly, so the rest of the class could keep their ears. Now we got Hero Course student Kanoko Komori versus fully equipped with support items, support course Mei Hatsume. But before the game could even start, Midnight pointed to Komori, who was also wearing support items. The Shroom girl, however, refused to apologize and instead took a bow. I couldn't turn down the opportunity. Hatsume said that the point of her match is to show off her work. And how could I, someone who also wants the spotlight, ignore this? She twirled around in the support items Hatsume had made before both girls looked at Midnight. The pro couldn't help but squeal at the passion as she bent the rules and allowed it. Okay then, Mike said uncertainly but struggled it off. And after that, it was just a display show. Hatsume had a microphone as built-in speakers played her voice out loud. Komori was dancing around the stage, showing off both her quirk and the gadgets. What is this? Mike asked disappointedly. And Aizawa face-palmed himself. She's very good at advertising. The duo just kept dancing around the stage, showing off every ability to the max before stopping as Hatsume tossed Komori another gadget. The match proceeded by another 10 minutes until the very end, where both girls took a bow, having expressed each other to the fullest. I've said everything. Komori waved Hatsume off as the support course student smiled and walked off stage. Hatsume is out of bounds, Midnight said as she pointed her whip at Komori. Komori proceeds to the next round. Next, we have, both from the hero course, Yuga Aoyama versus Mina Ashido. Izuku frantically finished his notes on Hatsume with Monoma making sure he got everything before flipping the page. He wrote down their names before the duo eyed the match attentively. A laser beam escaped Aoyama's belly button, but Mina dodged by slipping around the stage on a liquid she was excreting from her feet. Aoyama made it a long-distance fight, but Mina could jump over and dodged every laser in an almost graceful dance. I'll win. You can't use your laser for more than a second at a time, or else your belly hurts, Mina yelled. That's what you said during the surprise fitness test from Mr. Aizawa. It was all valuable information for Izuku and Monoma as the greenette kept writing. Just as she said, Mina quickly wrapped up her match as Aoyama wanted to buckle over. A throw of the liquid at the support item Aoyama wore immediately broke the belt and melted Aoyama's pants until they fell to his knees. Acid secretion, Izuku asked, seeing the blackened metal. And Monoma nodded. She can control the acidity too, the dog of that class said too. Lay down a weak dissolving solution during his chase against me. He rolled his eyes at the memory as Mina punched Aoyama's face, knocking him unconscious and letting her advance to the next round. Next was Momo Yaoyorozu and Manga Fukadashi. Izuku went on a complete rampage this time, voice almost going sore as the match started. Yaoyorozu's creation quirk was highly versatile, and the outcome of the match was unknown. "What do you think, Deku?" Takage asked, and Izuku took a deep breath. She seems to have a tag lag between each creation. Manga doesn't. As he said, Manga was saying bang, and explosions were erupting from around Yaoyorozu. She created a shield just in time, and Izuku watched as Manga attacked again. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew forward, blinding Yaoyorozu as Manga set off another explosion with a bang. Yaoyorozu was getting cornered by these attacks when Monoma sighed. "Momo Yaoyorozu won." "How?" Takage asked, and Izuku nodded with Monoma. "Manga's about to lose his voice. He can't keep fighting." It was just as he said. Manga held onto his throat, and Yaoyorozu recovered. The legs of her pants slightly burned away from the attacks. Yaoyorozu quickly made a net shooting gun, and with Manga out of commission, she caught her opponent before Midnight announced her win as Mike moved the festival on. "Okay, next up is..." The trio looked up at the screen as they saw Tetsu against the person who was always with Bakugo, Kirishima. "Oh, God," Monoma groaned, and Izuku turned to the blonde. "What's wrong?" Monoma just reached over and flipped the pages to Tetsu. Then Kirishima and Izuku noticed what was wrong. "They're the same person." Takage gasped as both contestants walked out. They both immediately activated their quirks. Tetsu's body glinted a metal silver, and Kirishima's features were as rigid as a rock. They crossed each other, and with a punch, the fight between mirror images started. The brutal punches to the face on either side were wearing both boys down. And finally, they both simultaneously knocked each other out unconscious. Both contestants down. "It's a draw," Midnight announced before explaining a winner would be chosen from an arm wrestling competition. "Do you want some strategies?" Izuku asked Takage as she got up. There wasn't a reply as Takage stretched her body before turning around and flashing her overconfident smile. "No thanks, I'm going to give it my all. I'll see you in the finals." Without waiting for a response, she ran off, and Izuku smiled after her. Monoma just shook his head and sat Izuku down. "You two are similar like that. Winning by your own means." The cheers of the crowds went wild as Takage and Bakugo walked onto the stage. Bakugo looked pissed as ever while Takage was smiling and waving. "I still hate his very existence," Monoma muttered, and Izuku laughed awkwardly as the match began. Bakugo glared at Takage and was going to tell her to drop out but stopped. Takage was already in a fighting stance and not planning to back down, which made Bakugo do the same. "If you're gonna withdraw, do it now, iguana eyes." "I'm not holding back," Mike announced the match start, and Takage immediately broke into 20 parts and floated into the air, rude as ever. "But I plan to win." She sent her body down like homing missiles raining from the sky, each piece attacking in multiple directions, causing Bakugo to set off numerous explosions off at every angle. "Don't underestimate me." Black smoke covered the ground-level playing field, and the scattered dust and ash caused Takage to stall a bit, trying to figure out where the ticking time bomb was. An explosion went off on the right side of the smoke, and Takage turned her attention there. But as she did, another explosion went off on the other side, and Bakugo came hurling through the air. "He can go airborne," Izuku exclaimed, never seeing Bakugo using his quirk in this way as he wrote it down quickly. Luckily for Takage, she quickly broke into another 10 pieces and escaped with only a single part of her being caught in the attack. She regenerated as soon as she collected herself in the air before resplitting it into 30 tiny pieces, sending them down to remain almost undetected. She tried to corner Bakugo, but the cat and mouse game quickly became a race of endurance. It was between how long Bakugo could dodge and fight back against Takage versus how much Takage could regenerate without passing out from exhaustion. Although the outcome was in Takage's favor at that moment since Bakugo needed to run around as she rested in the sky. The explosive blonde realized this and let out a yell before aiming the explosion on the floor in a scooping motion, throwing rocks and rubble into the sky. Takage expertly dodged them before counter-attacking. And now the outcome was unclear. The greenette was whizzing around the sky, dodging incoming rocks and the occasional Bakugo who threw himself up before landing back down and using his ridiculously sharp reaction time to avoid incoming parts. Both contestants were giving their all in the brutal fight, and Izuku could already see the outcome. "He's going to win, isn't he?" Monoma asked, reading Izuku's expression, and the greenette grimly nodded. "Kaken gets stronger the more he fights because he sweats more. Takage is the opposite. She is good at drawn-out battles, but she gets exhausted more over time since she needs to regenerate her body, with Kaken blowing up about 2 or 3 parts in each attack. She's not going to last much longer." The crowd didn't make a noise at the intense battle because it was evident that neither was giving up. Takage may have had the upper hand initially, But Bakugo turned the tables as she focused on dodging the incoming rubble. This will be over soon, Monoma sighed. And just as he said that, Takage smiled. The reality was that she had not split into 30 but her maximum 50. However, in such small parts, they remained undetected as they attached themselves onto Bakugo's clothes during their exchange. With a battle cry, she used the 20 micro parts of herself to drag Bakugo into the air by his shirt as Takage descended towards the floor. She was tired and wanted to end this quickly. What's she doing? Her body can't hold out that long, Monoma exclaimed, and it was true. Izuku was worried but held his breath as the incautious plan caught Bakugo's body off guard and pulled him toward the edge of the ring by his clothes. Except as Bakugo neared the edge, he set off an explosion. And Takage watched in horror as Bakugo had used the sweat-soaked shirt to set off an explosion. Light burn marks covered his body. But he had destroyed 20 parts of Takage's body with one shot. The girl had reached her limit. And as Bakugo blasted his way back over with his arms shaking, Takage had passed out on the floor. Izuku got up to wait for his next battle as feelings mixed within him. He kept remembering how Takage was so confident that she would win and how she gave it her absolute best. He gritted his teeth as he wanted to do the same, puffing his chest out as he walked until, "Whoa, Kaken, what the hell do you want? Die, scum. Well, I'm next, so." Izuku cleared his throat and tried to smile. "I'm just going to the waiting room." Bakugo looked pissed but faced Izuku as he reached the top of the stairs. "Don't act all high and mighty just because you're standing up for yourself." "Deku, did you think of that desperate plan at the end?" he growled. All he could think about was that ever since Izuku started as a hero in 1B, the Greenette's complete lack of self-confidence had begun to break. Monoma wasn't the only one who noticed how Izuku had led Shinsu straight into the shoulder throw. And it made the ash blonde more irritated. Just to see the Greenette's face, Izuku didn't move from his defensive stance. But his face became serious as he faced Bakugo. No, Takage made that plan on her own. It surprised both me and Monoma. If you were caught in it, then it was Takage leading you around. With that, he walked off before opening the waiting room door just to hear Takage laugh awkwardly. "Huh? I lost. This is awkward after I said I would see you in the finals." Izuku looked at the Takage who was missing her legs as she sat on the waiting chair. "I really thought my surprise attack could carry him out. Guess my strength just wasn't enough." She smiled awkwardly at Izuku, who walked in and sat opposite her. "I did a number on Bakugo though, right? I know it was reckless to do that even though I was on the brink of passing out." Izuku was relieved to see that she was okay and that her body would regrow after some rest. But he was still worried. "Are you sure you're okay?" "Takage." She looked at him skeptically before smiling. "Of course, I know I ended up not winning, but I'll be fine." Izuku smiled and decided to put the subject to rest as Mike's voice echoed around the building. From the draw battle of Kirishima versus Tetsu, the winner of their arm wrestling match to decide who advances to the next round, both Greenettes could hear a crash, followed by cheers as Midnight announced the winner to be Kirishima. With the first rounds officially over, Izuku got up from his stretches and headed for the door. "Deku." He turned around briefly to see Takage's toothy smile. "Do your best." He returned it with his own smile and nodded before leaving the room. He knew he was leaving Takage to be upset alone and frustration grew inside him. "I couldn't do anything to comfort her. Instead, she gave me the confidence to carry on." "Damn it, Izuku." His thoughts were cut short as Endeavor, the number 2 hero, suddenly stepped out in front of him. "Endeavor. Oh, it's you. You have a wonderful quirk." He pointed at Izuku, putting the Greenette on the spot. But Izuku didn't let himself falter. "You created so much wind pressure just by flicking your fingers. If we're talking power alone, yours is comparable to All Might's." The confidence in Izuku shook as he avoided eye contact. He didn't want to let anything slip. "What are you trying to say?" he asked, a little meekly, before shaking his head. "I must go." He strode right past Endeavor, not facing the hero as he tried to get away. "It is my Shoto's duty to surpass All Might. His match with you will be a very instructive test bed. Please don't disgrace yourself in it." Izuku felt that Endeavor's words had just trampled on all the feelings he stored and hated every second of it. He didn't know what was going on. And at that moment, Izuku was just angry. The number 2 hero gave a flimsy apology about stopping him before a match. But Izuku didn't hear it. His shoulders shook as all he could think about was how everyone was giving it their all. And Endeavor was pushing his problems into him. "I will be giving this my all. If he's too focused on surpassing people, then there's no way I'm going to lose." With that, Izuku walked off toward the stadium with Endeavor staring at his back. "We're starting the first match of the quarter-finals. Shoto Todoroki versus Izuku Midoriya." Todoroki was looking impatient as he didn't even look at Izuku. His focus was on someone standing in the crowd. And it made the already annoyed Izuku even more agitated. His eyes burned with determination as he refused to lose this match, not against someone who wasn't giving it their all. Take's legs had grown back, and although she was exhausted from doing so, she sat down with a sigh next to Monoma. "What do you think about this match, Monoma?" she asked, and the blonde sighed. "They're both equally destructive from what we've seen, but Midoriya has barely used his quirk since the beginning. Is that an advantage?" Take asked, and Monoma shook his head. "No, because his power is self-destructive until he learns otherwise. I should have given him some pointers since I've tried power-storing quirks before." He grumbled but shook it off. "Plus, we still haven't seen Todoroki's full use of power, so the outcome is highly unpredictable at this point." The air became tense as Todoroki finally looked at Izuku, who was glaring at him. "Ready, start." Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video, as well as the editor for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.